Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Irvin, with another manga volume review. This is going to be on The Promised Neverland. The videos have been doing not as well as I expected them to, but I'm getting closer and closer to the actual chapter by chapter section. So after this volume, there is another volume, and then I'll be chapter by chapter, so make sure you guys keep up with these videos. Before I continue, a few things. If you have not done so by now, subscribe to my channel, hit that bell button. Make sure you like, share, comment. That helps the YouTube algorithm and gets these videos pumping up. Thank you so much for those who do support me. If you guys want to further support me, you can always become a Patreon. Lastly, guys, you guys can watch the first 15 volume reviews that I have ready for this series. It is a series that's close to my heart because it's probably the one that I've reviewed the most when it comes to chapter size. Let's see. I think that's it. Other than there's a spoiler alert, obviously on this volume, I will talk about it in some detail, and it's way past the anime series, so you have been warned. You have been warned. Okay. This volume, compared to the volumes we've gotten, like volume 8, that was amazing. Volume 11. Even the previous volume and the one before when they met Norman and all that, it kind of falls below them, but it's not because it's not good. It really isn't, because there's still shocking moments in this volume, but at the same time, it's more of an information volume more than anything, or searching / information volume, and it just feels less active as the other ones. Now, is that a bad thing? Not precisely, because a lot of these things I wish we would have had in the other volumes when the kids traveled. I don't know if you guys remember previous volume reviews before. I spoke how the writer stopped writing their trips. Essentially, he went 2 years later and now they're here, or 2 months later and now they arrive at their destination. So that's kind of what he's been doing. In this one, they kind of go more with the actual trip and detailed trip, and it really is because it's less kids. So let's first focus on Ray and Emma. So Ray and Emma are in the realm of the Lord of the Demons, right? And they essentially go into this maze, and that's basically how it ends in the previous volume, I believe. And they're trying to figure out how to get there. The 7 walls end up being your sense of space, and which is direction and time. Now, not completely sure what all the 7 was, but I believe it was north, south, east, west. Those are the space or direction, and then the time I think was past, present, and future. So if you can break those 7 walls, if you can put yourself in a state of mind where those 7 things don't matter, then you can meet the Lord of the Demons. So this is obviously difficult for Ray. Ray is a very analytical thinker, very similar to Norman as well. So they're at a realm, I guess, where time does not matter. So at one point, Ray becomes a little kid, and another point, he becomes a very old man who's given up in life because he's given up in searching for Emma that he lost, and he just doesn't know what to do now. So his emotions, his subconscious is driving him to this old age of giving up and not wanting to do anything now. That comes into play because then Emma shows up as a little girl and says, wake up, and he just opens up, and he's a youth again, and she says, I figured it out. The 7 walls are space and time, and you have to essentially not be confined by these 7 walls in your life. They try hard to do that, and Emma shows up in front of the Lord of the Demons, and Ray ends up back in the base. So Ray actually does escape the realm, thankfully, but he ends up in the base, and he wasn't able to break all the 7 walls. Only Emma was, and it's explained by the Lord. So Emma asks for a new promise, and in that new promise, essentially she wants all the farm kids, all the humans to go to the new world, or the human world. And essentially, the Lord says, "Yeah, I can do that. I can do that for sure, but I need something from you." And we don't get that response in this volume, so I don't know what it is. We do know that what the Lord usually asks for is something precious to her. So I'm assuming she might keep her in that world. She might say, "Yeah, all the farm kids can go except you," or maybe I don't know. I kind of feel like there's always a catch to it. So okay, let's go to a next part of the volume. The next part of the volume, we get a little past of the first promise, and essentially what happened was the original Retreat guy 1,000 years ago suggested the whole idea about, what do we sacrifice a few humans and let the demons farm those humans, and like we can send them prisoners, we can send them people that are bad, and then we won't have to be sacrificing people in war because we're continuously losing people in war. And everyone who's in that group says, no, that's not right. How can you live knowing that there's people dying because of your name, etc., etc.? So they blow off the idea. This guy goes into war one day, and basically everyone dies, and he's the only one alive. And before he is killed, he asks, oh gosh, what is his name? Lord Jivius, I believe, or I might be wrong on the name, but it's basically the guy that was in the hunting ground to, let's go, show me to your queen, and I want to propose something. So they actually go up to the Lord, and they ask for a promise, and essentially he says, if we leave humans behind, can you send the majority of us can you split the world in two and send us, to human world, keep the demons here with some food and supply, so they can reproduce, right? And the demon lord says yes. The two exceptions the two requests she put to the demon queen or leader, she says, you have to provide me your best meat, which is why Gracefield was built, why Emma and Ray were built. And then she also says the other one for the humans is, you, Retri, you have to stay behind. Your whole clan has to be behind, and you guys will be the gatekeepers forever. So that's the old clan, or the old promise. Richie essentially betrays the humans, quote unquote, because they don't give in to him being the voice of reasoning. So he just sends the demons after them, and the leaders get killed. It's a big backstabbing betrayal scene. So anyways, pretty good. The other part of the series is Dawn and Gilda. Gilda. And essentially, Norman sends them to look for this bad blood demons that he's like, I'm not gonna hurt them. I just want you guys to get them, retrieve them. We'll protect them until Emma returns, and we'll see. Now, Dawn knows from the beginning this is just bullcrap. Norman wants to kill him. So Norman sends them with the recruiter that found him, the weak guy. So they're kind of calmed down with this guy. And then they send him with a second person. And this is a new character. She was saved by Norman and by his henchmen a few months ago. And essentially throughout the volume, we think that she's there to kill the bad blood people, and we eventually hear her story. She tells them to Dawn and Gilda, and essentially what happened is she was raised by a demon, and the demon was basically her father. They had a bond as a daughter and father, and Norman killed her father, the demon, and they thought they were saving her from the clutch of the demon, and essentially that was not what was happening. What was happening was she was living freely with him, and she basically vowed herself to stay with them until she has an opportunity to kill Norman and his henchmen. We're finding out that Norman has gone to the dark side, if that makes any sense, and that Norman and his henchmen might not be surviving this series. I don't know. I don't see Norman surviving this series, to be honest, but we'll see what happens. There's obviously a lot more. At the end of the volume, they do find their friends, the bad blood, and essentially the guy that was weak that no one was worried about, he actually had a transmitter, and he called one of the henchmen of Norman to come and kill him. And at the end of the volume, is basically a standoff of who's going to attack who, and that's basically it. That's the end of that volume. The next volume is volume 17. Now, if you look it up online, as of right now, time of recording, it is not set up as a volume, but I'm going to come up with the chapters, assuming that they follow the same structure with the rest of the volumes, which typically they have about 9 chapters in the volume. So I'm going to do that and review those for you guys. And then after that, there's only two left as time recording. Obviously, there might be 3 by the time you watch this video, or 4 by the time the other video comes out. So anyways, after that, I will be reviewing chapter by chapter. I'm pretty excited about that. This series is getting intense. Again, not a bad volume, not the best volume. I think all the volumes in their own sense are good. I think one of the worst ones was probably was it 5 or 6, when they were finally leaving the house and they were just in the forest. That one was kind of a slow volume. I think that's probably the worst one. This one's kind of in the lower section of the volumes, but still, like I said, all of them are basically good. So I wouldn't say don't read it. I mean, read it, obviously, and get to the point. So, if you guys want to read this, you can wait on Shonen Jump, and yeah, you can get a subscription for about $2. I think it's pretty cheap. So make sure you check it out. You can read all the chapters that are current as well. So yeah, make sure you catch up with me, or pass me if you can. I know a lot of people have passed me already. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you haven't done so by now, again, subscribe. Make sure you support me in other means, like in Twitter, or just liking, commenting, and sharing. That always helps as well. Thank you again for your love and support, and like always, don't be strangers. See you guys.